Dissecting the Kaiju number 8 OP. This will have no spoilers past episode 2 of the anime. I absolutely love this opening. Its gorgeous 3D visuals are super rad, along with the awesome song. I'm enjoying the show so far, and because of how infatuated I am with this OP, I want to do some proper analysis and theorizing based on the opening. I'll be laying out my flow of thoughts as I've gone through the opening multiple times. Note that I am not a manga reader, and I do not have any spoilers for what's ahead. So for any manga readers who may be reading this, or listening to this, I hope it will be entertaining to see how I interpret things with no idea about what's coming. For any other non-manga readers, I'm curious to see your interpretations and predictions. I'll not be using any other screenshots from the opening, as you can watch it yourself on the official Toho channel, which I have linked on the blog post for your reference. These are early thoughts, and I really wanted to put pretty much everything down, so don't take every single one like I bet money on it being true. And some may contradict each other as well. And please do not spoil things in the comments, both for me and for anyone else. I did not do any research on this as I do not want to be spoiled. If you want to say I'm right or wrong, be cryptic and indirect about it. I'll be using creature, organism, and organism as nouns to refer to the various living things we see here. I do not know the exact specifics on what defines something as a kaiju versus a normal creature yet in this world, so hopefully that won't be confusing. So, the OP starts with the rocky spires pointing up towards the camera with a red mist. I think this represents hell, fitting with the later line, I've seen hell rise out of your eyes. The hell imagery could be literal or metaphorical. We see a cloud of dust bubble up from the red stony area, which turns into what I assume are early development life forms. I think this implies the origin of the kaiju is from that area, as a creature bubbles up from there. This also matches how, so far, kaiju have always popped up from underground. Perhaps the kaiju start in hell, develop underground, and then rise to the surface when they mature. The eyes part could represent someone else looking at Kafka and seeing the kaiju inside him, or the hell in your eyes could be him seeing the gaze of Mina wanting to kill kaiju, aka him. Hell for him could be seeing the flames of hatred towards what he's become, a kaiju, in the eyes of the most important person to him. This or these organisms multiply while staying together in a large growing sphere, developing what look like eyes right before a fish eats them. We then pan out to what looks like a lab with everything we've seen being in a large containment tube. There's a school of smaller fish, including what looks to be the one we saw eat the organisms. There is also a larger fish that we see eat the smaller fish. This part looks to be portraying the cycle of life, with smaller creatures being eaten by bigger creatures, which are eaten by bigger creatures. The growth of the creatures could also represent evolution. Survival of the fittest is a big idea of evolution, and in this case, the stronger predators are the ones eating and surviving. The kaiju could be an advanced life form that has evolved to prey on humans, or it could be a creature that has rapidly evolved. Or what this represents is specifically the kaiju or creature that went into Kafka. All the kaiju we've seen so far are giant freakish versions of some other kind of life form, such as the spider-like ones with human features we see in the first episode and in the OP. This creature may be parasitic and or symbiotic, burrowing themselves in creatures and causing them to be able to change their forms like we see Kafka do, becoming an amalgamation of the original creature and others. Early in the red rocky area, there's an electrical current looking visual going through. Perhaps this, combined with the lab testing looking area that we see next, implies that kaiju are man-made in origin. The creature that burrows into Kafka has a look of being partially based on technology, with the circular red lines in its eyes and the glowing blue cracks. It also communicates in Japanese, a human language. Perhaps the creature in the tube that gets eaten by the fish is this creature or another version of it. It places itself in creatures and feeds on them. Through the food chain, it could travel to reach the ideal life form, which maybe is a human, maybe it's Kafka specifically. Around the tube with the creature in it is what looks like test equipment connected to the tube. Surrounding that is a human-sized walkway for observation. Around that are many yellow gas canister-looking things that have faucets at the end. Perhaps what happens here is that the water from the containers that the original creature we see is put in the canisters to be distributed somewhere, perhaps on the surface to spread kaiju. My first thought is that they're shaped like gas canisters, but that would not make sense to have liquid faucets. Next, we see the beautiful sequence of helix-shaped visuals molding into various objects. We've got what I think is blood, signifying life. Then it changes to guns that are carried by the defense corps. We then see these guns covered in red, likely the blood from before. This represents how they are used to spill the blood of living creatures. This is also shown over the line to your demise. Then we see combat axes, was what I think they were, along with the words, "You've got to fight," and "I've got to fight." If we take most of the lines to represent Kafka's thoughts and his experience, then these are the weapons he may use to fight while hiding his kaiju powers. The use of both "you" and "I" could be referencing himself and Mina, who he has acknowledged has to fight kaiju, even though he is now one. Next is the helix of hands reaching forward along with the line, "Been thinking I need isolation." This could represent how Kafka now feels alone, being in an abomination that has to hide who he is. Being in contact with people puts himself and them at risk, so he may feel that the responsible thing to do is to isolate. All this devastation could be what he is capable of doing as a kaiju, or maybe it represents what the kaijus as a whole do, which he is now a part of. Perhaps he loses control of his powers at one point and does serious damage. Head Needs Renovation is about how he's losing his sense of self and likely becoming mentally unwell as a whole, as a result of his kaiju side. This line comes along with the changing of hands into what I think are buildings, representing the system he's in, and the buildings full of people that he wants to protect. Moving on from the hex portion, I think the line, "If you had to choose, would you ever let me go?" may refer to a choice Amina has to make once she finds out Kafka is a kaiju hybrid. Let me go may mean killing him or letting him be killed. Then we see the building-looking things that also have an electrical or computerized visual over them bubble over the red, yellow, and orange biomass. As we pan out, we see this in a test tube that bursts. This is the kaiju side of Kafka exploding out, which fits with the line, "I can't stop the monster, I'm losing my control." We then see this mass grow outward and upward. We see some explosions that I can only think represent some fighting, before we see the same colored mass transform into the spider kaiju that has human features. This kaiju moves toward the camera, along what looks like, the most to me, like the inside of a machine that simultaneously also has the aspects of buildings and streets. The mass then reforms into a dinosaur-looking kaiju in the same environment. Perhaps what these two kaiju specifically being shown in the context of Kafka's kaiju power exploding means is that these are his two main creature transformations. These transformations are shown along with the repeated line of, "Could someone please save my life?" This may be Kafka agonizing over seeing himself in the form of the creatures that he has wanted to stop. He has become the monster he swore to destroy. Save his life could refer to the direct way of saving him, which would be fixing him so he could be normal. Or a darker angle is that it could refer to him being killed to save him from the agony of what he's become, and the life he must now live, hiding who he is and living in fear of what his own people would do to him. The mass then transforms into many single eyes that attach to the walls and continually get closer to the POV. This could represent his fear of being seen for what he is. If he eventually properly understands that he has a kaiju inside him, perhaps he will feel like he always has a kaiju's eyes on him from the inside, which would fit a lot with the visuals in this OP, seemingly representing Kafka's internal state. But this can be contradicted by what we see next. From the eyes, we see that the path the mass has been going through gets closed off, panning out to look like we are inside a newly shown creature. Before we saw what seemed to be representation of being inside Kafka's mental and physical state, but now we have to think from the perspective of how all of that could have represented the creature. Perhaps it is as simple as a cool transition to the big moment, but it could be representative of the idea that humans and kaiju are not that different, or that Kafka's new biology makes him not different from the kaiju, or at the very least similar. This new creature also looks biomechanical, moving organically but having structure and eyes that look machine-like. While all this is being shown, "Could someone please save my life?" continues to be repeated, outside of "because I've gone cold." Perhaps what would save his life is him being able to live out the Defense Corps dream he shares with Kafka. In this case, saving his life being more figurative, representing how he was unsatisfied with the life he was living. If someone is unhappy in life, just going through the motions, some people say that you may as well be dead metaphorically, or like a zombie, like The Walking Dead. Him going cold could represent a bunch of things. If he is becoming like a kaiju, then going cold could be him losing touch with his humanity. Going cold can also represent death, as the body becomes cold after dying. This could lend itself to the theme of death, as he is growing cold and inhuman, slowly dying a metaphorical and or literal death. Then we get to the big shot of the OP that goes ridiculously hard. Kafka and Mina are staring down an army of creatures side by side like in their dream. We see these creatures with many red eyes that look to me the most alien-inspired out of everything we've seen. Aliens are commonplace in kaiju stories, so I would not be surprised if that is part of the origin of the kaiju in this story. We also see what looks like pterodactyl kind of things in a giant worm-like creature in the middle. I'm going to assume these are simply the creatures we may see later. It's based on what I know, it's hard to make predictions on what exactly those mean. Then the camera pans to the ground being broken, which transitions into what seems to be Kafka's main kaiju power form. The ground being broken before we see him could reference how we see the kaiju come from the ground when they attack. We go from human Kafka to the ground being torn up to kaiju Kafka. Kafka is a kaiju, not just a human. The pan away from the dreamlike shot could be representative of how he has been moved away from that dream. He's still pursuing it, but that exact future may not be possible anymore. The opening ends with Kafka closing his fist at the camera in a cool and dramatic way before turning so he fits the Kaiju number 8 silhouette. The last lines we hear are, "'Cause I've gone cold and I'm stuck in the abyss all alone." This sets the tone of what we can expect going forward in the story. We're not left to sit on that idyllic dream of those two proudly standing together against the kaiju. We're left with his misery, feeling inhuman and alone. Maybe that goal could still be possible, but it'll be tough for Kafka on the road to it. So I hope that was enjoyable and made sense. I've always loved anime openings for how they can convey so much emotion, tone, theming, perspective, etc. in such a small amount of time. I love openings that make you think and can be recontextualized as you see the OP again and again as you proceed in the story. The best openings are like this one, doing all of that without obviously spoiling the series and being awesome on its own. I'm really looking forward to more of the show. And let me know if you like this kind of analysis and want to get more. Thank you for listening.